Okay, OpenAI has done it once again. Let's see, it was how many weeks ago? Oh yeah, 3 days ago. They released their previous model, GPT-4.1, and we tried that one out with some vibe coding, doing a little bit of Wordle stuff if you saw it, kind of fun. Excellent model, made very few ancillary changes. Well, they just dropped o3, the full version, and o4-mini. Now, we had o3 low, medium, and high, kind of a thinking model that could do low, medium, and high kind of thinking. o4 now replaces that. So we have o4-mini that will have kind of different variations, I believe, on strength of thinking. But o3, the full model, has dropped. And I've used quite a bit of it to have conversations with it, to do brainstorming, advanced document creation with a very large context. So it's really worth taking a look at o3 in general. If you've looked at it in the past and you've thought, yeah, it's not bad, o3, the full model, I really believe is a major difference. And wait. So before you go any further, this whole thing, I'm not going to go through all the charts and all the numbers. We show them very briefly so that you can just get an understanding of it. There's something really cool that they released that they call Codex. Codex CLI is another thing that they released alongside of all of this, which is basically the computer level of coding. So in your shell, you can kind of integrate directly with OpenAI to do coding. And so I kicked the tires on that with o4-mini, and let me tell you something. I have now spent $15 in the last 4 hours using it. Not because the model is that expensive and not because it's in a runaway scenario, but because I've been using it so intensively. It is fantastic. It is a great coding model. Now, I won't say, and actually OpenAI doesn't say that it's better than 4.1, the model that we tried the other day, but 4.1 doesn't yet work in Codex. And Codex was so much fun to just kind of horse around in that I've been using it, just basically handing over my money to OpenAI these days. In any case, we have two new models, o3, o4-mini. Those just replace the kind of scenario that we had before with some people had o1 and o3-mini. Those are just being replaced. And we get Codex, which is a brand new thing. We're pretty much going to jump through the announcement of the two models so that you can see what's new about them, but really dive in on the Codex just for fun. It's kind of an interesting place to play. A little technical to get it going, not terribly hard, but a little technical. So jump a couple chapters over if you just kind of want to see that. Jump. You know what I'm talking about. Let's dive in. Okay, as always, I like the nerdy stuff. I like getting my hands dirty, but we're going to talk a little bit briefly about what this model does, how it performs, how its price modeling works, that kind of stuff, but just a little bit. I'm going to try to make this pretty brief. Coming into the announcement page itself, you'll see that they're talking about o3 and o4-mini, of course. They're announcing the o3, o4-mini models trained to think for longer before they respond. So these are the thinking models. We've had thinking models before. 2.5 Pro from Gemini is a very good example of those. 3.7 from Anthropic. The 3.0 or the o3 model before this here in OpenAI. They say for the first time, though, our reasoning models can agentically use and combine every tool within ChatGPT. That cannot be overstated. That's a really important one, that these models all of a sudden have all of that tool access. This includes searching the web, analyzing, uploading files, and other data with Python, reasoning deeply about visual inputs, and even generating images. I am just going to blast through these. I apologize. You can see that they outperform the o3-mini model before them and the o1 model, both of which are getting deprecated. This goes for science and math. It also is a very good set of coding models. The coding is here. You can see the vast improvements, even o4-mini over the previous o3-mini, from 50% to 68%, which is pretty amazing. I found interesting, they're continuing to scale reinforcement learning right up here. So I'll read through this very quickly. Throughout the development of OpenAI o3, we observed that large-scale reinforcement learning exhibits the same more compute equals better behavior trend observed in the GPT series pre-training. By retracing the scaling path, this time in RL, which is the reinforcement learning, we've pushed an additional order of magnitude in both training compute and inference time reasoning, yet still see clear performance gain, validating that the model's performance continues to improve the more that they're allowed to think. We also trained both models to use tools through reinforcement learning, teaching them not just how to use tools, but to reason about when to use. And that's really exciting. Again, one of the best things that we can take from all of this is not just this kind of level step increase in performance or intelligence, but also their clear understanding of tool use. But the only thing we care about, not true. They announced, kind of sneaked in at the end of their announcement, a one more thing, Apple style, called the Codex CLI. And this CLI is command line interface. It just means you use your terminal or shell to run it. And it allows you to basically do full agentic coding, vibe coding, if you will, in your command line. And it has some interesting constraints. It stays within the folder that it's executing in. If you give it full auto mode, which is this mode that it just keeps stepping forward and making the changes that it needs to make on its own without interruption, then it essentially acts as if it has no network access other than, of course, to the model that it's communicating with. But it acts very much like something like Cursor or these other tools that allow you to do agentic or vibe coding, and it's in your command line. Now, we've seen this from Anthropic computer use. This is the first time we've seen something like this from OpenAI, and excitedly, I'd say Codex CLI, it says here, is fully open source at this URL, at GitHub. And highly worth taking a look at it if you're interested in coding at all, if you're interested in this kind of agentic coding. Only nuance here that's important to point out, if you go this route, we will go this route in just a second, you'll need to get an API key, which means you need to be a Plus subscriber at least so that you can get an API key. And on top of the $20 a month or whatever the cost might be in your area, you also have to put a couple dollars in the kitty so that you have enough kind of budget to be able to use the API. The way they have their API set up is it's not out of the $20 a month that you're paying for Plus service itself. But of course, if you do that, you get use of O3, which is a great model. I'll talk about that in a second. When you're using the API, it uses whatever cash on hand that you've given to your account. So you basically upload $5 basically to their bank, and they say, okay, until you've used up all 5, you can use the API. So that's how their API works. Just wanted to warn you before you take these steps. I won't be necessarily showing all of those steps for you to understand that. Okay. 1 second out here, I just wanted to say, look, I've been using O3 a fair bit in the last day and a half, and I've been using it for a specific purpose, actually a purpose that I have. I'm working on a very dense set of information to try to draw out both documentation and presentation materials and really a whole action plan going forward that's kind of intense. O3 has done just a fantastic job of connecting disparate dots. I have a habit of recording very long voice memos, let's say an hour plus, transcribing those into text, and then using those as a file, dropping that file into a model and saying, okay, here's all my thoughts on a subject. I want to have a conversation brainstorming about this. I need you to go figure out what I'm talking about, what's useful, what are the threads. Those kinds of things are the steps that I take, and I've been taking this for quite a while, and it's very, very useful from something like a ChatGPT experience. And I've been using O3 for this purpose in the last couple of days quite a bit, and it has been great. I can't say anything more than that. It's hard to quantify, of course. It's very subjective, but it really has been great. So in any case, I want to use Codex CLI. Let's go build something just for fun. Let's go make a mess. Okay, here we are at the GitHub repo. Again, it's OpenAI Codex if you want to follow to it. I'll provide a link down in the notes below. If you are not used to GitHub and you want to try out Codex, which is perfectly fine to do, the only actual complexity is getting that API key, frankly. So if you have an OpenAI account, you're a Plus user, for example, and you're subscribed, then getting an OpenAI key is it's only going to take putting a couple dollars on your account and being able to use it. And that's very easy to do. The easiest thing to do in that case, and in the case of, I don't understand all of this stuff in GitHub, what am I supposed to do here? Or it's always irritating trying to figure out how to use it. I would say, ask ChatGPT. I know that sounds really stupid and really circular here, but it's really worth saying, yeah, this is confusing sometimes. These readmes, these files on GitHub and all of these files listed up top can be very complicated to newcomers. So it's okay to say, I don't really know what to do here. Just take the URL of this page itself and drop it into ChatGPT. Really what it's going to tell you is this line up here. They put this together quite nicely, that this line up here, this npmi and this repo itself, it's basically just installing Codex for you in your environment. So we're going to drop down and I'm going to run that command. Okay. And then once we have that, the next question, of course, is what the heck am I supposed to do with this? And they have a pretty good example down here. You'll see the quick start is basically what we just did. It says install instead of just I here. And then it says what you'll need to do is in your environment, which really means that terminal window you're in, the shell you're in, you'll need to export an API key. This is complicated language for anybody that doesn't understand it. If you understand it, score. This is just setting a variable in that shell. So if I set a variable here in this shell, which is what I'm going to need to do, while I'm using this shell, that variable will persist. And all systems will be able to read that value. It's just one of these shell variable or environment variable concepts. It's something that's kind of fundamental to these shells. If I close this shell window and reopen it, it's not going to be there anymore. So I'll have to export this code that we're going to get from OpenAI, and that will set this variable name. That's all that's going on here. It looks crazy, looks surprising. If you close your shell and try it again tomorrow, it'll bark at you saying, I don't have an OpenAI key, so you'll have to set that again. You'll just have to remember, oh, that's right, there's this weird step that I do. That's all. Moving on from that. Okay. They're also giving you pretty good instructions. If you want to put this into a file that will load every time you open your system, you can set your API key as a line at the bottom of your RC file. I'll leave that for the reader. But in the end, the thing that needs to be run is this Codex. So if I just type in Codex over here, it will attempt to run Codex. So that's what they're really saying is we did this first line. The next line is type in Codex. And of course, what's it telling me? Missing your OpenAI or OpenAI API key. So let me go get a key real quick and I'll be back in just a sec. Okay, just briefly to show you, if you have an account with OpenAI, you'll have this dashboard. You'll see this dashboard thing up here. Down at the bottom, you'll see this line item called API keys. You'll more than likely be in a project already, but you might create a new project. I advise that so that you can keep track of usage per different thing, but that's fine. You can click that button and I'll say, Codex 1. And this is in my Codex demo project that you see up here. That's it. When I hit this button, it's going to give me the key. It's going to copy it to my clipboard. And now I'm going to go run that export statement in our shell window. Okay, and now we're ready. So I should be able to type in Codex. And Codex is ready to run. And this first warning, simple to show you, I'm not inside of a good folder to do this in. I'm just in a bold folder somewhere that has a whole bunch of other stuff in it. So the best advice is create a folder to put this in. It's also saying it's best to be within a repo. You don't necessarily have to worry about that, but you might be challenged by this question if you haven't created a repo. But what I would say is make sure that you create a new folder somewhere and you go into it before taking any of these steps. Okay, so here we are in a file or in a new folder called Codex Demo 1. Let me run Codex and you'll see what I'm saying. So it's saying, are you sure you want to run this not in a Git repo? I can say yes. And what we get is Codex itself. And it's telling me this is the directory I'm in. Here's the model that I'm using. And the approval is suggest. So it's kind of in that mode of it saying, are you sure you wanted it? Here's an option. Do you want to take it? That kind of thing. If I hit Q, you'll see that it says send Q or Control C to exit. And I will Q for a second to show you what I'll do is do a git init here. It's that simple. So now I have a Git repository here. And if I look at all the folders in here, there's this hidden.git file or folder that is inside of the repository, inside of the folder that we just entered here. Okay, and running Codex this time, I don't get asked the question of you're not inside of a Git repo. So you can easily just do git init if you have Git installed. I would imagine you do. If you don't, ask ChatGPT. All right, so now we're in here and we want to create something pretty simple. Let's say, do me a favor and create me a little HTML game, maybe a single page HTML application that is different than tic-tac-toe. Maybe there's a tic-tac-toe where you can move a piece instead of always placing a piece. So you can choose between placing and moving, something like that. Make it animated and dynamic and theme it with something other than X's and O's. I have no idea what that's going to do. So it did run a git status. It's taking a look at what's going on in the folder that I'm in. It realizes I'm on the main branch, no commits. And okay, so here's our first example of a file that it spit out, or maybe the whole thing. Looks like very likely the whole thing, because we did ask for it in a single HTML file. So it's trying to add the file index.html, and it's gonna, all these pluses are adds into this file all the way down to here. This ends up being the shell command that's gonna run. So it's interesting that that's duplicated, but that's fine. And likely what we're gonna see at the bottom here is a question of, do you want to allow this command? All right, I've added a single page 3 tokens game, unicorns versus dragons, that works like 3 men's Morris. All right, let's try to run it. All right, dragon's turn, unicorn's turn, dragon's turn. Oh, and then it went to movement phase. Select a piece to move. Okay, so I don't know this game. This doesn't help, but fair enough. Let's move this unicorn's turn to move. I'm gonna move you. The only place you apparently can move is there. Dragon can move down here. Unicorn can move there. And he wins. Oh, interesting. So it's basically movement tic-tac-toe. Oh, that's kind of cool. And hey, by the way, not surprisingly, it's pretty simple, but it worked just fine. Had animations. I love it. Let's see what else we can build. Okay, just wanted to show you real quick before we moved on to the next application. Remember we created this new little project in our account for OpenAI? Well, this is what it affords us. So I've come to the usage tab in here, and you can see we just made the tic-tac-toe dragons versus unicorns game. And what that ended up doing is creating 4 requests. So here's the list of the 4 different requests. And you can see that we've done 22,000 input and 9,000 output. So that's cool. You also have the ability to see the logs themselves. And so this is very fun to come in and kind of peer at what exactly, when we're doing all this agent stuff, what happened? What was the conversation like? And so this is the example of that conversation. You'll have to enable the logs, by the way, so you'll need to go there first before it's capturing this, but you'll see that. I just wanted to show this. I think this is very neat and a good reason to keep separation so that you can really keep an eye on a specific project that you're building. Let's go build another one. Okay, here's another fun one, I think. I hope. So we're still in suggest mode. This one is something I've never tried before. I'm gonna try to use the camera. They showed this in their example. Not this, I'm not doing what they did in the example itself, but something similar to this that they're using the webcam now. Okay, let's be honest, it's slow as Christmas, but it is a thinking model. That's the whole point. You wouldn't use this as your standard kind of code generation model. You might use a thinking model when you really need some extra work done during origination of an application. Sometimes I would use a thinking model. If it's a sophisticated request, I might use a thinking model during that first pass like we're doing here. But it is slow, but you know, it's a thinking model. Okay, this time it thought, let's see, for quite some time. Let's see how long this one took. 156 seconds. So this one took quite a bit longer, but it did bring it back. Let's let it save. Cam-HTML. Allow. Oh, excellent. Oh, I'm supposed to be popping bubbles with my nose. Oh. I would say those circles, if that's where my nose is, maybe aren't working. But okay, so it apparently works. Let's try one more. Okay, I'm gonna risk it. This is just gonna be fun. Let's see how this goes. Anybody that remembers from a previous video just a couple days ago, I built a Wordle clone, sort of, that is terrible at Wordle. That would be me. That, if you notice, I believe there's supposed to be 6 rows. I did go and finally play a game of Wordle after building this, so I know there's a little bit of difference, but there should be 6 rows. I can add that. Gosh, it feels like it should get that right. It's a thinking model. So what I thought I would do, here we go. This one's gonna be a little bit nuts. I'm gonna try to make it put 2 boards out there at the same time, independently playable, and that I can move between the 2 boards with arrow keys, because that's where this thing's really supposed to go. But I don't really want to destroy what we've got. So what I'm going to do, everybody knows, you've heard me do this before, I'm going to come over and check everything in to make sure that if and when it gets blown away by this ridiculous change that really is unrealistic, nothing will be hurt. So let me dive over there and get everything started. All right, real quick, this time, since I kind of anticipate it's going to take quite some time, I'm going to come out to the repo and find how they do full auto mode. You'll see that they mention full auto here. It's dash approval mode, dash approval mode, full auto. So I'm going to use that in this case. Okay, we're in full auto. o4-mini is the model that we're using. I'm about to give it a crazy set of instructions. Okay, so this application is a Three.js application that uses, is a Wordle game in 3D. You'll see there's a board that's standing upright. I'll give you a screenshot in a second. And what I'm interested in, the Wordle board itself. So I need you to add a new row. But wait, that's not it. There's more. So, okay, what I really am interested in you doing is after you add the 6th row, of course, make sure the game still works with 6 rows, right? A different Wordle game on it. So I want to be able to use the left and right arrow keys to move between the 2 boards. I want to animate the camera. So I think the camera should move. Everything else should stay the same. It's kind of a locked camera in 2D space. By the way, please keep this code very clean, very extracted and separated in the way that you normally would when you're coding something. I want to make sure that the game logic, the movement logic, the environment logic are not cobbled together. They should be very clean as you find the project already. All right, let's see what you've got. Yeah. Not a possible way. So let me grab a screenshot while we're sitting here and we'll see if this worked. They showed it in the demo that I should be able to just drag this in here and it will use that URL as the image of the game. I'm going to back up and make sure it can see that, I guess. I don't know if I'm supposed to put screenshot in front of it or something else. Let's see what it does. Thinking, reading through some things. Okay. Oh, okay, it's made its first change. So it pulled out a bit at the top on our card file. I guess it's maybe moving it down because it's now going to be changing the X position of the camera. Sounds perfect, exactly what we were looking for. I actually have hopes here. Okay, 10-minute mark. I mean, it's doing a lot of work. It's doing a lot more thinking than it's doing actual writing, which is fine, I would think. I mean, it's up to the model to figure out how much writing it really feels like. And there we go. I've updated the game to support 6 rows per board, 2 independent Wordle boards side by side with smooth camera panning between them using left-right arrow keys. That's exactly what I said. No. All right, let's take a look. I will leave that one open and I will actually run this here. Okay. Well, I do see 2 boards. Yeah. Okay. No typing. Oh, they're just not showing up until I hit enter. A U, an I, and a K. Yeah, sure. All right. There are 6 rows. There are 2 boards. Oh, sorry. Here we go again. I'm sorry. Okay, I got the I in the right place though. So I got a UI. All right. I need to see it when I type. It's pretty hard doing it in my head. I'm just putting letters out. I apologize. Hey, congratulations, I won. Can I still play the other board? I can. Wow, that was a stab in the dark. That's kind of ridiculous. That was also a complete stab in the dark. What? No. Okay, I still suck at Wordle, guys. The only thing that's missing is I can't see the letters show up when they are in that mode. So let's ask for that real quick. I think just about everything you put down was literally perfect. The only thing that's now changed is when I type a letter before hitting enter, so when it's still kind of in temporary or non-submitted mode, I don't see the letter on the card any longer. It used to be a black letter in the card, and that seems to be gone. Can you take a look? All right, while we do that, let's go take a look at how expensive that first one for 10.5 minutes or something was. All right, so this is where we were. I reload you. Oh, wow. That just went up to 1.5. I think it was like it's 7,000 tokens or something. Okay, I have to interject here. This is from the next day. As I'm editing this, I decided I wanted to show you. I dove in quite a bit more. I mentioned in the beginning that I've spent a bunch of money on the API, building the rest of this application, or just kind of pushing forward into it. And it's really been great. It's been a lot of fun, but I wanted to show you where the project went after you guys stopped seeing what I was just doing. Really, I did the same kind of behaviors, so there's nothing special other than me, blathering, which you guys have seen a lot of. So I will show you where the application is right now, and then we'll go take a look at the OpenAI logs a little bit, just to show what the spend was. In fact, let's maybe do that in reverse order. Okay, without going too far into it, as you can see, I think we had 7 cents last night when we were running this, and now we're at $14, 31 million tokens. So it's been quite a bit. 478 requests at this point. I don't remember how many we had, but it was 30 or something along those lines. But look, it's time to go see what the application has become just for fun. And all right, so this is a big mess, of course. You're seeing a big debug panel that I've had the system set up, because one of the challenges I've had having multiple boards and multiple lights inside of a 3D environment is I have to position cameras and lights, things like that. And that gets very difficult when what I've created here is a locked camera view. And so you can see what the actual, there's 5 different boards that you can play, and you can move the camera in and out. And of course, you can change a bunch of the different parameters here, as well as another thing that I had to add in case anyone else is building things like this. I had to add another debug camera so that I could kind of take a look. This is the camera. I've had a case where I had multiple lights laying around as well, and I needed to see where those lights were impacting. So I had to have this thing create a secondary camera for me to be able to peer in on the game as it's being played so that I could see what the vision and controls were. So I thought that was fun. I thought you'd enjoy seeing kind of an outcome, or roughly an outcome. I will not bore you with me trying to play another game of Wordle. Oh my goodness. Why on earth I picked Wordle, I don't know. It's a particular weakness of mine. So I really have enjoyed doing this work. You know I like vibe coding anyway, but it's been really a pleasure in a lot of ways to work with Codex. I didn't think I'd be any kind of a convert, and I'm not really there yet. But wow, there's something interesting here. All right, in any case, let's get back to it. Okay, this one's run kind of long. Apologize for that. There was just a lot to cover, and I really obviously had a heck of a lot of fun doing it. I just wanted to say real briefly that these models, O3, I've had, as I've said, a lot of conversation with the O3 model, and it really has had some really good insights and it's done a really good job. That one's worth saying. I think there's a real upgrade that occurred there going from the mini to the real model, not surprisingly. And the o4-mini model, as you saw, really a great coding model, very expensive to use as your main coding model. It's not really how I would code anyway with a full thinking system. It's much slower. I have used the 4.1 model that also released this week, but I will say both of these models had almost no collateral changes. That's a real new thing. The 3.7 model, the 3.5 model, both from Anthropic, the Claude system, as well as the 2.5 Pro from Gemini, all create extraneous changes that you didn't necessarily want, and you're always having to claw back or be very specific about the changes that you want and what you're asking for. I really think we've entered a new space here. This is really a new step into the way models can be tuned specifically for coding in a very, very focused kind of way. I'm very excited for it. Had a lot of fun. Codex was also really a lot more fun than I expected, as you've heard me say. So listen, I wanted to share something with you guys. I've really been feeling it. You guys have put on a lot of subscriptions recently. I really appreciate that. It helps the channel quite a bit, and I've really been feeling it. And I've got a lot of shares that I see, people sharing the links around with other people. That really makes a big difference. I just want to say thank you. If you've made it this far in, then I really just want to say thank you to you. Thanks for coming along for the ride on this one, and I'll see you in the next one.